What if the most photographed face of the 20th century had a skincare secret that almost nobody knew about? Marilyn Monroe was famous for her glow, her luminous skin, her radiant complexion under Hollywood studio lights. But for decades, nobody knew exactly how she achieved it. Then a single handwritten document surfaced, a prescription, written by a doctor, dated March the 17th, 1959. And it changes everything we thought we knew about her. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing something a little different. We are not talking about vintage beauty tips in general. We are following one specific woman through her actual, documented, verified skincare routine. Step by step, product by product, morning and night. And that woman is Marilyn Monroe. Before we begin, I want to be completely honest about something. A lot of what gets said about Marilyn Monroe online is myth. It is legend. It is stories that have passed from interview to interview and magazine to magazine until the original truth gets buried under layers of rumor and invention. Today we are working only with verified, documented facts. A real prescription that still physically exists. Real products that can still be purchased. Real instructions written by her real dermatologist and addressed to her personally. This is not a recreation, this is not a theory, this is the actual routine. In 1959, a document was written and addressed to a woman named Mrs. Marilyn Monroe Miller. The Miller came from Arthur Miller, her husband at the time, whom she married in 1956 and would divorce in 1961. The document was a skincare prescription from one of the most exclusive and sought-after dermatologists in all of Hollywood. His name was Doctor Erno Laszlo. That prescription was later preserved at the Makeup Museum in New York City, where it became one of the most discussed and admired beauty artifacts of the modern era. Today, we are going through it together, every single step, so you can understand exactly what she was doing, why she was doing it, and what it still means for us right now. To understand what Marilyn was doing with her skin, you first have to understand the man who designed her routine. Because Doctor Erno Laszlo was not simply any dermatologist. Dr. Laszlo was a Hungarian-born physician who built one of the most exclusive skincare practices in the world. His clients were not simply wealthy women, they were the most famous women on earth. Grace Kelly, Greta Garbo, Jacqueline Kennedy, Audrey Hepburn, and Marilyn Monroe. What made Dr. Laszlo genuinely different from every other dermatologist working in that era was his philosophy. He believed that skincare was not a vanity project, it was medicine. He believed that every face was biologically unique and that every routine had to be prescribed individually, not purchased off a shelf. His products were not available in stores. You could not simply walk into a pharmacy and buy them. To access them, you had to be seen personally by Dr. Laszlo himself. He had to study your skin under examination. He had to diagnose your specific condition. Only then would he write your personalized prescription. That level of exclusivity sounds almost extreme today, but it produced extraordinary results, and it attracted a client list that speaks entirely for itself. Marilyn Monroe began seeing Dr. Laszlo regularly, and their relationship became one of genuine and deep trust. In her own words, documented in multiple sources throughout her career, Erno Laszlo not only heals my skin, but he soothes my soul. That sentence tells you everything about the depth of the relationship. He was not simply her dermatologist, he was one of the very few people she trusted completely with the most visible part of her professional identity, her face. He was so devoted to her specific case that he developed a formulation called Formula 38 entirely for her skin. Her face literally inspired a new product in his line. That is how personal and clinically precise his work with her was. Dr. Laszlo's legacy survived him and lives on through the Erno Laszlo skincare brand, which is still sold internationally today. Several of the products from Marilyn's 1959 prescription are available in updated, modernized formulations. When the Makeup Museum first announced the exhibit featuring her prescription card, the brand even relaunched a limited edition version of one of her key products, specifically in honor of the partnership. But here is what I want you to hold on to before we go any further. Marilyn Monroe had dry skin. People assume that someone with her extraordinary glow had naturally perfect skin that simply appeared luminous on its own. The reality was very different. Her skin required serious maintenance, consistent deep hydration, and a committed routine built around what her specific skin type actually needed. The glow was not accidental. It was earned through discipline and the right expert guidance. And that is honestly the most encouraging thing about her story for anyone watching who struggles with dry, dull, or difficult skin today. Let us walk through the morning routine first. This is the foundation of everything. Step 1 was a cleanse. Not a splash of cold water and done. Not a quick rinse. A proper, intentional cleanse with warm water and a specific cleansing bar. Dr. Laszlo prescribed what he called the active Felatil soap, available today in a modernized version called the Felatil cleansing bar, applied to the face and neck together with warm water. Pay close attention to that detail. Face and neck together. This was not an accident or an oversight. In the 1950s, the neck was never treated as a separate zone from the face. It was considered a direct extension of the face and was cleansed, treated, and protected with exactly the same care and products. That philosophy produced women whose jawlines and necks aged in harmony with the rest of their faces. It is a habit that modern skincare has largely abandoned, and dermatologists today are starting to advocate strongly for bringing it back. When you look at photographs of Marilyn Monroe in her early 30s and notice how smooth and unified her skin appears from her forehead all the way to her collarbone, the neck cleanse is part of the reason why. Step 2 was the toner, and this is where things become technically fascinating. Dr. Laszlo had her use a product called the Normalizer Shake It, a tinted, mattifying treatment that came in a bottle designed to be shaken before each use. His application instructions were strikingly precise. She was to shake the bottle well, then saturate a piece of cotton to the dripping point. Not lightly damp, not simply moistened, to the dripping point. She was then to apply this saturated cotton all over her face, carefully avoiding the delicate skin around the eyes, and blot it off immediately. Not rub, not leave it. Blot immediately. Think about what is actually happening here. She is applying and removing in a single motion. She is depositing a thin, even layer of the tinted mattifying treatment onto the skin as she simultaneously lifts any excess moisture from the surface. This is not the swipe and leave toner application that most people practice today. This is a precise, technically specific treatment designed to even the skin tone and control shine without stripping moisture from below the surface. It is the kind of application technique that comes from years of clinical observation, from a physician watching how skin responds to treatments, not from a marketing team designing a product to feel luxurious in the bathroom. Step 3 was the eye area. For this, Dr. Laszlo prescribed a dedicated eye treatment called Pelotone Eye Cream, formulated specifically for the thin and fragile skin around the eyes. This particular product has unfortunately been discontinued and is no longer available in any form. But the principle it represents is completely current. The eye area in Marilyn's routine was treated as its own separate zone, requiring its own dedicated formulation. Not a swipe of the same product used everywhere else on the face. The skin around the eyes is thinner, more delicate, and ages differently from the skin of the cheeks or the forehead. Dr. Laszlo treated it accordingly. Step 4 was the Duo Phase face powder, applied over the entire face and neck together. A finishing layer that set everything beneath it and created an even, unified canvas ready for makeup application on shoot days or public appearances. This powder has also been discontinued, but its function in the routine was to complete the base and create consistency across the whole face before anything else was applied on top. Now step back and look at that morning routine as a complete picture. Cleanser, toner, eye treatment, setting powder. 4 steps, 4 products. Nothing more. There is no serum, no acid exfoliant, no vitamin concentrate, no face oil, no essence, no overnight mask. Just 4 products, applied in a deliberate sequence, for a deliberate purpose, on a specifically identified skin type. And yet we are describing the morning routine of one of the most visually documented and admired faces in all of human history. The lesson here is not that simpler is always superior. The lesson is that the right products, carefully selected for your specific skin type, applied in the correct sequence by someone who understands your skin, used consistently without improvisation, will always outperform 10 random products thrown together without direction. Dr. Laszlo understood her skin because he had studied it carefully over years of clinical contact. She followed the prescription completely and consistently. The results are visible in every photograph ever taken of her. Now we come to the secret that almost everyone has heard of, but very few people actually understand correctly. The Vaseline, yes. Marilyn Monroe applied Vaseline to her face before putting on her makeup. This is documented fact. It is not rumor, and it is not legend. It was confirmed directly by her longtime personal makeup artist, Allan Whitey Snyder, who worked with her throughout her entire career and was one of the most trusted people in her professional world. It was explored in meticulous detail by beauty historian and educator Lisa Eldridge, who in 2012 published a video recreating Monroe's iconic Hollywood look using fully sourced historical research. Here is exactly what she did. Before any makeup was applied on set, Marilyn would apply a layer of Vaseline, petroleum jelly, or sometimes Nivea cream as an alternative, to her entire face. Then her makeup was applied on top of that layer. If your first reaction is that this sounds like it would make everything slide off and create an unworkable oily mess, that is a completely reasonable reaction. And understanding why it worked requires a little historical context. Under Hollywood studio lights in the 1950s, the technology was fundamentally different from anything we work with today. The camera film stocks were different. The lighting rigs were different. The intensity and warmth of those studio lights was extreme by any modern standard. Under those conditions, a completely matte and powdered face could photograph as flat, lifeless, and almost chalky on film. A face with a slight luminous sheen, on the other hand, caught those harsh lights in a way that looked warm, radiant, and alive on camera. Almost ethereal. The Vaseline gave Marilyn precisely that sheen. It created what Lisa Eldridge described as a beautiful, luminous glow under the studio lights, with the additional quality of making her skin look ever so slightly soft-focused in front of the camera. She was not applying it carelessly or thickly. She was applying exactly enough to create that specific effect. And because her skin was genuinely dry, it could absorb that level of moisture without becoming visibly oily. The Vaseline was not working against her skin type. It was working with it. This was not a random habit. This was a professional technique developed with her makeup artist to solve a specific technical problem. How to look radiant and alive under lighting conditions specifically designed to make skin look flat and artificial. And here is the part that is almost hard to believe. In 2023 and 2024, skincare communities across the internet rediscovered a technique they named slugging, the practice of applying a very thin layer of petroleum jelly as the very last step of a nighttime skincare routine to seal in moisture and prevent water loss from the skin surface overnight. The technique spread virally and was treated as a new discovery. Marilyn Monroe was doing a version of this technique in the early 1950s. Not at night, and not for moisture retention, but the fundamental principle, petroleum jelly applied deliberately to the skin for a specific benefit, was exactly the same. She was using it on film sets while the people who would eventually name the slugging trend were still decades from being born. She was not following a trend. She was ahead of one by 60 years. Now we come to the most involved and technically sophisticated part of Dr. Laszlo's prescription, the nighttime routine that the document called the evening before retiring. This is where the real restorative skincare happened, and it is a complete philosophical contrast to the morning routine. If the morning was about clean, minimal, and mattifying, the night was about deep cleansing, deep nourishment, and zone-specific repair. Step 1 of the nighttime routine was an oil cleanse. Dr. Laszlo prescribed the active felatil oil, applied to the entire face, then rinsed away with water and dried with a clean towel. Oil cleansing as a category has had an enormous resurgence in modern skincare over the past 10 to 15 years. The concept is elegant and scientifically well supported. Oil dissolves oil. An oil-based first cleanse at the end of the day removes makeup, excess sebum, environmental pollution, and product buildup far more effectively than a water-based cleanser alone. Marilyn Monroe was beginning her nighttime routine with an oil cleanse in the 1950s, a practice that millions of people today associate with contemporary skincare innovation was part of her prescribed nightly routine more than 65 years ago. Step 2 was the active felatil cream. This is a rich, intensely hydrating treatment, a heavyweight moisturizer formulated for the deep nourishment that dry skin needs after a full day of exposure, makeup wear, studio lighting, and environmental stress. She was to apply it to her entire face, working it into the skin. But then comes the part that is genuinely unexpected. She did not leave it on. After applying the rich cream, she was instructed to wipe it off using a piece of cotton saturated once again to the dripping point with the controlling lotion toner. She applied the cream and then removed it with the toner in one combined step. The cream was not used as a traditional leave-on moisturizer. Its purpose was to deliver a concentrated and rapid dose of nourishment to the skin in the moment of contact, and the toner would then lift the excess cream from the surface while leaving behind what the skin had already absorbed in that brief window. This is a remarkably precise and clinically sophisticated approach to nighttime hydration. Dr. Laszlo was not telling her to put on a night cream and sleep. He was designing a targeted treatment application, a method of maximum delivery in minimum time with minimum residue left on the surface. It is the kind of thinking that belongs in a clinical setting, not in a typical 1950s bathroom. After lifting the cream with the toner, she dried her face with a clean towel. Then she applied the controlling lotion one more time, but only to her nose and her chin, not her entire face, just those two zones. And she left it to dry overnight, completely undisturbed. This final detail is one of the most revealing in the entire prescription. Even though Marilyn had dry skin overall, Dr. Laszlo had identified through careful observation that her nose and chin behaved differently from her cheeks and forehead. He was treating her face as multiple distinct zones with multiple distinct needs. The drier outer areas received the nourishing cream treatment. The slightly more active center zones received a targeted overnight toning treatment to keep them balanced and clear through the night. We now describe this as combination skin management, or skin zone treatment, and it is a cornerstone of advanced modern skincare. In 1959, Dr. Laszlo was doing it with precision and without labeling it anything at all. It was simply what thoughtful, evidence-based dermatology looked like when it was done properly. There is one more element of the prescription that I want to highlight, and it is probably the most unexpected detail in the entire document. At the bottom of Dr. Laszlo's prescription, written for Marilyn Monroe on March 17, 1959, there is a list of dietary restrictions. Foods she was specifically instructed not to eat. The list includes any kind of nuts, chocolate, olives, oysters, and clams. At first reading, that list can feel almost random. Why those 5 specifically? What do chocolate and oysters have in common that makes them a problem for skin? Dr. Laszlo, like the best physicians of his era, was tracking the relationship between his patients' diets and the condition of their skin over years of careful clinical observation. Today we have a sophisticated vocabulary for this connection: the gut-skin axis, inflammatory foods, the skin microbiome, individual food sensitivities. The science is well documented and well accepted. In 1959, that clinical vocabulary barely existed. But the observational insight was the same. Certain foods caused certain skin responses in certain people. And Dr. Laszlo was watching those patterns in his clients closely enough to make specific, personalized dietary recommendations. It is highly probable that these 5 specific foods had been identified through that careful observation as genuinely problematic for Marilyn's skin specifically. They may have triggered breakouts, redness, or uneven texture in her case. He was personalizing her treatment program all the way down to what she ate for dinner. What makes this remarkable in hindsight is that mainstream dermatology spent much of the late 20th century actively telling patients that diet has no meaningful effect on skin. That position is now understood to have been far too simplistic. The evidence of 2026 strongly supports the connection between what we eat and how our skin behaves. And a Hungarian physician working in New York City was already acting on that connection in 1959 for the most photographed face in the world. Before we close, there are a few additional details from Marilyn Monroe's beauty life that deserve mention, because together they paint a fuller and more honest picture of the woman behind the glamour. Allan Whitey Snyder worked with her from the very beginning of her career through to its end. He knew the practical mechanics of her daily beauty life in a way that almost no one else did. He confirmed the Vaseline technique. He documented the products she relied on. He understood the specific qualities of her face in a way that came only from years of professional contact under the most demanding conditions imaginable. Marilyn also used Nivea skin moisturizing lotion regularly on her body, not just her face. In a 1962 interview, she spoke about this directly, noting the Nivea lotion as a consistent part of her routine. This is entirely consistent with everything we know about her skin type. Dry skin does not stop at the jawline. Consistent head-to-toe hydration was part of how she maintained that overall quality of luminosity. Her personal makeup box has been photographed and studied in detail by beauty historians. Inside it, among the expected professional tools, an eyelash curler, earplugs, a matchbook, there was a small box of Chinese ginger candies. These were commonly used at the time to calm an upset stomach and manage nausea. It is a small detail, but it is a very human one. Behind the perfected public image was a woman who experienced nerves before performances. A woman who needed ordinary comfort before extraordinary moments. She was, in every practical sense, a working professional managing her instrument with every tool available to her. Inside that same makeup drawer was a braided blonde hair extension, evidence that Monroe was using hair additions for volume and texture long before modern hair extensions became mainstream or widely discussed. She was inventive in ways her public image rarely showed. She solved problems quietly and practically before the solutions had names. And there is one more thing worth knowing documented in her medical records that were made public in 2013. Monroe had 2 chin augmentation procedures during her career. She had become self-conscious about her chin after overhearing a critical remark about her appearance early in her time in Hollywood. She addressed it privately and professionally. The point is not to diminish anything. It is to make the full picture honest. She combined Dr. Laszlo's prescribed skincare routine with her own personal decisions about her appearance. She was not passive about how she looked. She was active, deliberate, and thoughtful about every single element of it. What strikes me most when I look at all of this together is how completely intentional Marilyn Monroe's beauty was. There is not a single accidental element in her skincare story. The routine was designed by a world-class expert. It was built specifically for her skin type after years of clinical observation. It was followed consistently and completely. The diet was consciously managed. The Vaseline technique was a deliberate, professional solution developed with her makeup artist for a specific camera-related purpose. The glow was not luck. The radiance was not genetics.
The luminosity that made her face one of the most recognized in human history was the result of a documented, prescribed, expertly designed routine followed with real discipline by a woman who took her craft entirely seriously. And the ideas embedded in that routine, treating the neck as an extension of the face, oil cleansing before bed, treating different facial zones differently, connecting diet to skin health, using petroleum jelly for luminosity, all of those ideas are as valid and as practically useful today as they were in 1959. Old Hollywood beauty was not primitive. It was thoughtful, precise, and in many cases decades ahead of where modern skincare would eventually arrive. That is exactly what this channel is here to explore. Not nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia.
The real intelligence that was embedded in the beauty practices of that era, intelligence that is still useful and still relevant to us right now. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. We are building something genuinely beautiful here together, and I appreciate every single one of you who watches and comes back. I have one question for you before I go. Which old Hollywood icon do you want me to cover next? Leave her name in the comments below. I read every single one of them, and your suggestions directly shape where this channel goes. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next episode.